But first of all, I would like to introduce to you today's speaker, Dr. Fred Zuelli. He is the Business Development Director of Mibelle Biochemistry in Switzerland, which, as we already said, develops and produces active ingredients for the personal care as well as the food supplement industry. Fred founded Mibelle Biochemistry more than 30 years ago, and he invented a large number of patent-protected active ingredients based on different technologies. Before Mibelle Biochemistry, he worked at the Nestle Research Center in Switzerland, and his research there focused on molecular biology and genetics of commercial Baker's yeast strains. Dr. Fred Zuelli studied chemical engineering at the Technical Engineering School of Winterthur, Switzerland, and he continued his studies also at the ETH in Zurich to study molecular biology and biophysics. And in his PhD thesis at the ETH, he investigated the thermostability of bacterial enzymes. For a long time, he was the vice president of the Swiss Society of the Cosmetic Chemists, and he was responsible for the scientific program of the IFSCC Conference 2015 in Switzerland, which I hope that many of you fondly remember. And today he will tell us about diabetic skin in his presentation. And before you start with the presentation, Fred, I already have a question that people probably had when they saw the title of the webinar. So diabetic skin and cosmetics, how does that go together? So perhaps you can answer this as a start into the topic.
Thank you very much, Franziska, and warm welcome from my side. Indeed, Franziska, I think this is a good question. So when we heard the word diabetic skin, that sounds a little bit like pharma. But I think dry skin and a disrupted barrier function, which is usually the case in people suffering from diabetes, are special cosmetic targets to be treated. And therefore, we think that there is a huge opportunity for new cosmetic products which treat the skin problems of diabetic persons. And in my presentation, I will tell you all now a little bit what is diabetic skin, what are the properties, and how we can maybe get ideas to treat this skin. So, So, as mentioned before, so the presence of diabetes has increased significantly over the years. So I found these figures. So we see here by the year 2030, we will have a doubling of the cases. And at the end of the day, that means that about 4.4% of the total world population will suffer more or less from diabetes. So probably you know that there are two types of diabetes. It's the juvenile diabetes, which is an absolute insulin deficiency. So they have to get insulin injected to cover that. But then there's also diabetes 2, which actually is more insulin resistance. And this is the big amount of people suffering from diabetes 2. And this is also the case where the case where the diabetes has increased dramatically over the years. So what are then the risk factors to get diabetes? And one big risk factor is advanced age. So, and we have an aging society, and therefore this risk factor will increase a lot over the coming years. A second risk factor is excess of body weight, especially around the waist. And then other risk factors are low activity levels, high blood pressure, and maybe family history of diabetes, which will cause the outbreak of diabetes in a person. So here I have a nice slide I found, which shows the increase in obesity over the years in the United States. And we see that more or less parallel to the increase in obesity, also diabetes has increased. So this shows exactly that heavy weight is a major risk factor to generate diabetes in a person. So what happens in diabetes? So there are irreversible vascular and connective tissue problems.